Brexiteer John Redwood has said he is glad Angela Merkel has finally gotten her head around the fact that British voters want a sovereign and independent country, 4 years after they voted to leave the European Union. The German Chancellor warned the UK would have to live with consequences of looser economic ties with the bloc after Boris Johnson rejected Theresa May's Brexit plan. Tory MP Mr Redwood hit back, saying Britain will be free and better off without close-knit ties with the Europeans. He said Britons would welcome the opportunity to make decisions on border security and fishing rights after years of being tied to the EU. He tweeted, "Glad Mrs Merkel has at last grasped the UK wishes to be an independent country in charge of our own laws, borders, money and fish. She warns there will be consequences. Yes, we will be free and better off." Mrs Merkel spoke with 6 European newspapers ahead of Germany assuming the rotating presidency of the EU Council on July 1. Her country will take the reins as trade talks between the UK and Brussels heat up next month. A series of intensified discussions have been put in the diaries in a bid to break the deadlock and strike a free trade deal before December 31. The UK's chief Brexit negotiator David Frost this week warned the next phase of meetings would be tough. In comments carried by The Guardian, Mrs Merkel said, with Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the British government wants to define for itself what relationship it will have with us after the country leaves. It will then have to live with the consequences, of course, that is to say with a less closely interconnected economy. If Britain does not want to have rules on the environment and the labour market or social standards that compare with those of the EU, our relations will be less close. Mrs Merkel, 65, has led Germany since 2005. She will retire from politics when her 4th term as Chancellor ends next year. She also said a no-deal Brexit would not be a personal defeat for her. Mrs Merkel said Europe could only respond appropriately to reality as Britain sets out what it wants at the negotiation table. Her comments come as Mr Frost, known as the Sherpa on EU negotiations, said the intensified process and discussions next week needed to be realistic.